Hi there, my name is Tina Sturdivant, and I am going to narrate a presentation that I've created for the Teacher of the Year nomination. Wanted to start off my motto as how I approach my job, and that is teamwork is necessary for success. And I hope you see that come through during this presentation. I am the science department lead teacher, and I do teach two sections of honors biology. And both of these jobs are extremely rewarding, and both are very reciprocal, meaning it's all about relationship building. I do that with teachers that I work with, and I do that in my classroom. So, this first slide here is kind of just giving you a basic understanding of the lead teacher role at Pinkerton because it is a pretty unique position from what I understand. Really, the red bolded line here is the most important piece of this. It's establishing and nurturing these working relationships between multiple people. Part of my job is I work with usually two teachers at a time each semester for a 6-week session. And what we do is I go in as an instructional coach, help them co-plan 2 to 3 times a week. I'm in their classrooms daily. I get to know their students, and I try to help model for them more student-centered or more student-directed learning experiences. I help them feel comfortable with risk taking and then soliciting that student feedback, and then taking what the students are doing or their understanding and then re-looking at things and co-planning maybe remediation for the students. Our curriculum and instruction coordinator is my coach. So I'm not the only lead teacher. There are 8 lead teachers and a technology specialist and a behavioral specialist. And we work as our own team to support one another and then go out into our respective departments. That's how I run my classrooms. It's all about relationship building with my students. Pinkerton has adopted 7 of the many habits of mind. The one in the center is the powered habit of mind that the science department is focusing on, and that is truly persisting and sticking to a task even though if that task gets really hard. When I design lessons in my classroom, I keep these 6 practices in mind. The 2 that you see in red are probably the 2 most important. So promoting this idea of open communication, working in small groups, advocating for themselves when they don't understand or need extra time to do something. And then science itself is based on inquiry. It's all about being curious. So I use my students' own questions to drive my instructional experiences for my students. So science being what it is, next gen is a lesson structure using storylines that allows students to be curious and to kind of steer where the lesson is going based upon their questions. It sticks to the standards. However, the students are more invested in their learning process because they're really kind of trying to figure out a problem. I just love this video because that as you watch this, all of the ducklings are going to make it up the stairs. And this is such a great analogy, I think, for our classroom experience. The ducklings are the students, and they're trying things, they're taking risks, and they're trying to achieve the goal of mastery of whatever content we're asking them to understand. But each of them is getting there in their own way, and they may take more than one try to get up there, but eventually they all make it. And the teacher, the mother duck, is in the background encouraging them along the way. Remote learning has changed how we deliver our educational experiences, but it doesn't change the desired outcome, and that is student excellence. My job is to help my students and supporting teachers to stick to a task. It's continuing that relationship that we've built at the beginning of the year, trying to make sure people are advocating for help when they need it, whether it be a student or cooperating teacher, and then reflecting on the learning and where's the area to grow. When I was asked to make this video for the Teacher of the Year, I felt that it would be a great tool for me to try to create something that I could use as a lead teacher to help support teachers who are struggling with that switch to remote learning. And this is a tool that I will use moving forward. So it is something useful. What you see on the left-hand side of your screen is an example of my weekly agenda that I publish to not only my department, but also to my students. I try to use consistent web tools with my students. So I use Zoom to start my classroom meeting. check in with my students, see their faces, see how they're doing. And then we would transition to something like a Jamboard. I did a question of the day. They can go to Google Classroom to get their work. Edpuzzle is a great tool to use where you can have your students watch videos, take quizzes, and you kind of assess where they're at with their learning. And then AWW is a great interactive tool that students could use to draw, or to scaffold the lessons. So again, my students really love Wakelet. That was the feedback that they gave me. And why I like Wakelet so much here is you can break down their lessons into chunks. The students can follow the flow of the class. My lessons are structured into an hour and 15-minute period. It goes over, I have the daily learning goal, the Zoom meeting to check in, watching a Screencastify video. Hyperlinks are all embedded for the students to obtain things without having to toggle back and forth between many different formats. There's a formative assessment for me to get instantaneous feedback. And then there's always a reminder for our next class meeting time. I use frequent formative assessments. So from the previous slide, this is what the exit ticket looked like. I use this to see where my students are, address any misconceptions that they have, and really this directs my subsequent lessons. How do I change my instruction based on that student, the feedback that I get from the formative assessment? Variation in lesson design is important because it allows the students not to feel like the class is stagnated. There are days that I have my students work independently. I give them a Wakelet and kind of go over the assignment with them, and then they're free to work on their own. There are times that I ask them to work in Zoom breakout rooms, so they're working collaboratively and can talk things out with one another. There are times that I give them a take-home lab where they're actually outside doing something. Asking for student feedback is really offering me lots of opportunity to be self-reflective of my learning experiences that I'm providing to my students and modeling that growth mindset behavior for my students. So at the bottom of the screen, what you're going to see is a survey that I sent out to my students. Names are gone from these two particular examples, but I'm really openly asking them, what activities have worked for you? How is the workload going for you? What technology is going well or not so well? And then do you have any other suggestions that I could consider? By doing something like this, I am modeling that self-reflection process for the students, and then I make adjustments based upon their suggestion. Go back to my original opening slide here with my motto on how I try to approach my instructional process with teamwork is essential for success. It's so important for a teacher to find a planning partner to work with. For me, that is a collaborating teacher named Fiona Shaw. She and I have been working together for the past 3 years. I feel her strengths are my weaknesses. She's a great person to bounce ideas off of. We will oftentimes divide and conquer. So we have a lesson structure in mind, and she may create some things and I'll create some things, and we'll put them together and we execute the lesson in our classrooms, and we communicate how it went for her, how it went for me, and then we make adjustments. The content or the level really doesn't matter when you have a planning partner. It's just having that other professional to co-plan. And essentially, as a lead teacher, I'm modeling how to find a planning partner. And my goal in the end is for my teachers to find that person to plan with after I'm finished with that co-teaching model with them. I'd like to leave you with a thought. I've written it out for you, and I'd like you to hear it in my voice because this is from the heart. My favorite part of my job is watching my students grow. I do not mean physically, although that happens too. I mean emotionally, cognitively, and socially. A shy, introverted student takes a risk and finds their voice and becomes a leader during discussions. The impulsive student who has a hard time waiting learns patience and listens to peers before speaking. The student who is anxious and does not know how or when to ask for help seeks support. Relationship is integral to facilitating a positive working environment. Helping my students understand this growth mindset is the foundation of my classroom culture. I consistently involve my students in my own reflection process. I emphasize when I make mistakes. Modeling response to failure is important for students to see, as we learn so much from when things don't go as planned, if we choose to pay attention and seek out those opportunities for growth. Life is a learning process regardless of age. We as adults are no different. It is an honor and a privilege every day to be part of helping to shape how students think, interact, and respond to their own learning process. I could easily replace every time I use the word student with participating teacher to signify when I'm in a coaching role.